Front row dads, welcome. And I'm so glad you're here for this conversation with my new friend, Gino Wickman. Gino, many of you heard that name and you immediately know who Gino is. But for those of you who don't, Gino has been married for 31 years, father of two, and about to be a grandfather. A little bit about Gino's history that is relevant to our conversation today. At 25, he took over the family business, which was in debt and in need of some help. And he turned it around, ran it for 7 years, and then he and his partners sold the company. He then created EOS, the Entrepreneur Operating System, which we use here to run Front Row Dads. And he wrote a book called Traction, which everybody told me I had to read for years and years and years. And finally, I caved, got the book, and was radically sold. That book went on to sell a million copies, and with all of the books in the Traction library, several million copies. EOS is used now by 180,000 businesses around the world. Some of my closest friends, by the way, are EOS implementers, and many people in this community run EOS in their businesses and credit that system to ultimately creating what we value here in the Front Row Dad world, which is space and time and systems for your business that allow you to be present with your family at home. And that is ultimately what attracted me to EOS, was how do I not let my business own me, but I get to own my business? And the reason that I wanted to chat with Gino today is his latest passion project is called the 10 Disciplines. You'll be able to check it out, the10disciplines.com. Tons of resources there that you should go look at. We'll link to all of what we're going to talk about today in the show notes. But when I found out what Gino was working on, what I was enthralled by was that he has created systems that help people, this is for decades now, to win in the outer world. Solid systems, well proven. And now Gino is spending part of his time talking about winning on the inner world, or inner world development. Gino, you don't know this, by the way, but my first company name for my coaching and speaking business was Inner World Development. That was the name of the company. And I will tell you that when you look at Gino's array of topics that he could chat about today, and I had to be selective because we don't have forever. Some of the things I want to dig into with Gino today are, he brought about these 5, we'll call them tools or resources to the world. And we'll talk about each of those and how it led to where we are now of the 10 disciplines. I want to talk a little bit about how Gino traversed through all these products and resources and systems that he built over the years. So some things that popped up in previous conversations I've listened to that Gino had about building a business on trauma. What does that mean? And do we then have to be trapped in that, per se, if once we've recognized that some of our life has been built on trauma? Not all bad, but I want to talk a little bit about that. I want to talk about the seven awarenesses to free your soul. Why Gino has experienced more peace in the last 2 years than he has in the previous 40, and perhaps how all of what we're going to talk about today relates to being better fathers, better husbands, and ultimately maybe healing generational trauma. That's a lot. That's a tall order. That's a lot to possibly get into today. But guys, if you've ever listened to Gino, you know he's very clear. He is a man of great certainty. And having a quality conversation is almost a guarantee, which is why we're chatting today. Gino, welcome to the Front Row Dads podcast. I'm so happy to be here with you.
Thank you so much, John. I am so looking forward to this. And holy cow, listening to you describe the outcome, it's all true. And it's all stuff we can't accomplish and talk about today. But man, that is just wild hearing you say that so well. So I am so looking forward to diving in.
Well, let's create some context, which I know that you do and you do well. And so there's a lot that's occurred in your life and what you've given to the world over the last number of decades. But if you can tell us a little bit of the story, and I've heard you do this, so I know you can do it, about these, for example, the 5 tools, we'll call them, that you brought to the world. And ultimately that leads us to what we want to get into today.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, what I call it is I describe them as 5 pieces of content I've created in the world. And what's important to understand is, my obsession, what I live for is helping entrepreneurs fully realize their potential. And so when we talk about the 5 pieces of content, it's all centered around entrepreneurs. So this is not to help nurses become better nurses, just so we're in the right context. But the 5 pieces of content are as follows. And so the first is called Entrepreneurial Elite. It's a book I wrote. It's my passion project. And it's all designed to help anyone on the planet who thinks they might be an entrepreneur confirm if they are, showing them a glimpse of their life and a path to become successful. The second piece of content is Rocket Fuel. And that's when that entrepreneur, that visionary driven entrepreneur, is ready to find their integrator counterpart to free themselves up to the next level. It shows them exactly how to do that. And then there's EOS and the book Traction. They're one and the same. And that's a system to help that entrepreneur then build and grow and run a great business. The fourth piece of content is EOS Life. Each one of these are a book. EOS Life is then designed to help that entrepreneur live their ideal life. And so, like you said, those first 4 pieces of content, what I describe is, as you said there, is it's helping an entrepreneur by every imaginable metric become successful in the outer world. And I describe it as they get to the top of the mountain. Well, for many of us, when we get to the top of the mountain and we've succeeded in that outer world, we still feel empty. We couldn't fill the hole we've been trying to fill with this whole journey. And again, that's also that building it upon your trauma, which we'll come back to. The 5th piece of content is what's called 10 disciplines for managing and maximizing your energy. And this is where I'm now taking that entrepreneur inside. Everything I teach from experience. So we teach what we needed the most. And so this is going inside. And when you implement the 10 disciplines in your life, it creates a platform and a foundation that then creates space for you to do the inner work. And we go in there to that scary place and drudge some things up and clean house. And ultimately, it's all about giving you peace. And so the way I describe it is to help you take this driven energy that got you to where you are and help you literally produce, be more productive, and have even more drive while being peaceful. And that's the thing that most of us are lacking, is just that feeling of peace and ease in our lives.
Yes. Yes. And when you say we can build businesses on trauma,
Yeah.
what does that mean? And how is that personal to you?
Yeah. And so what does it mean and how is it personal? So, again, my life is entrepreneurs. I can't even count the number of entrepreneurs I've worked with and helped. And so, I know it when I see it. And again, speaking from experience for both myself and the entrepreneurs I work with, in almost every case, they have trauma, but in almost every case, most people have trauma. So with that and being a driven person, which is a really important part of this message, which again, understanding your audience, this is your audience, driven
100%.
Visionary entrepreneurs. And so we are driven to build something in the world. We're given superhuman strength. We've got more stamina than most of this drive that drives us. And then we're also trying to fill a hole. And whatever the trauma is, and we can go through all the types of trauma, and let's please not do that, but shit happens to us in life. And for most people, it's kind of scientific. Something happened to you around age 7, plus or minus a year. And so go back, start there and look at whatever that thing, because that's a developmental period. I've got mine, others have theirs, but then other forms of trauma. And again, we're not going to get into total specifics because I want the context to be clear. But for me, I was always trying to fill a void. I was always trying to prove something to myself in the world. I was always trying to prove I was worthy. I was always trying to, people's judgment was a big thing for me. So I'm always, trying to please everyone. So with that, I certainly by every metric have been successful in the outer world. And so building on the trauma is just this approach that you're building it to try and prove something to yourself or others. And that motivates you. There's no question, there's fuel in that. But the day you realize that you can do it on peace, the day you realize that you can literally remove the trauma. And in no way am I a mental health professional. So I'm not coming from that standpoint. I'm coming from science, which I have experienced it and I have seen it, and that you can remove these blocks, this blocked energy that you have. You can remove these things that are stuck in you that are the opposite of peace. You know, you're building it on pain and fear. And in that situation, most of your decisions are based on fear, and your ego is running the show. On this other side, when you go inside and you clear it all out, you're then doing it on peace and soul and love. And literally the fuel is 10x. It's 10x the fuel. And ultimately where we want to get you to this point where we call it being in float, and we spell it FLOWT, which is a play on two words, both being in the flow, which we all know, but then also floating through life. And that's that combination of that productivity and that peace. So hopefully I answered what you asked there.
Yeah, no, yes, you did. And when in your life, Gino, were you standing on top of the mountain, recognizing that you had achieved all of this, but then, and then finding that next piece of the puzzle, right? When did you, what do you remember? Was there a year? Was there a moment when you were like, I made it? I've literally achieved everything I set out to achieve. And now I'm going to turn the attention inward and look for peace and float.
Yeah. I mean, I think I can zero it down to a time frame, but it's unfortunately a little more fluid than that, because I started my journey of inner work about 25 years ago. So I started doing things to do what I call shed layers. And so my description of this is we built all these layers to protect us. And that's just the ego doing a wonderful job protecting us from ever feeling pain again. And at 25, at 30, 25 years ago, I read Celestine Prophecies. It was my first introduction to energy and spirituality. And it's like, whoa, because prior to that, everything was tangible and solid, including the being, until I realized we're all balls of energy. So I had an experience that shed a layer. Whenever you shed a layer, there's always tears. It felt really good. And so I did a pretty good job over those 25 years of really shedding layers. And again, anybody close to me, you know, all felt I pretty much had it together, and I did. You know, it's not like I was a complete disaster, but again, by every external metric, everything looked pretty darn good. So I sold EOS Worldwide 4.5 years ago. And, you know, I've always had a pretty good life, really balanced, very intense in terms of the way that I work. So upon selling, it was about 2 or 3 years ago, closer to 2, I would say I literally thought I was perfect. I literally thought I had it all figured out, because again, externally you do you measure everything and it's pretty good. But what I realized is there was this yearning, this calling, and I describe it as an emptiness, and I'll do my best to conjure up the feeling. But it's like with my hands, I'm like grabbing at the air right now. It's like there's this thing that I thought was right there in front of me that I just couldn't grab, and that there was something more. And there were 2 books that hit me upside the head: Letting Go by David Hawkins and Untethered Soul by Michael Singer. And it was letting go when I read that was like a wake-up call, when I realized at what level I vibrate, and that there's still some shame and anger, and there's still some emotions in me that have not been fully addressed. And whoa, boy, when I went there, I realized I'm not so perfect, and I've got some shit to clean up. And then I just really went to work hard on myself to clear some blocked energy.
Gino, you're gonna love this. I was in a ceremony myself years ago, personal growth type of experience, and the woman who was leading said, if anybody would like a healing or a blessing, then you can come see me. And I remember my internal dialogue was, I don't have anything that needs to be healed. I'll certainly take a blessing. And dude, when I look back on that now, I laugh at, you know, because where I am today is recognizing that actually at 47 years old, my business is the biggest and the best it's ever been. I have more time freedom. I have the best relationship with my wife and my children in every category. I'm the healthiest. I'm the strongest I've ever been in every category. And I actually believe that I have more healing to be done now. And that healing is actually the thing that I need more than anything in order to become what it is I feel I'm supposed to become, my personal evolution. That healing I never gave credit to. And now I'm starting to see the real benefits of that.
So good. And, and on that point too, here's the scary thing, so I'm 2 years, a little more than that, into this kind of deeper work and having these ahas. And I describe it as, so I don't know where I am on the spectrum of like being 0 to 100% in terms of, let's just call it fully enlightened. Okay. And I'm certainly far from that. But the funny thing that comes to me is, you're describing what I'm describing right now. And that is, the journey never ends. We're always working. If you want to keep growing, it's endless. And so I don't know if I'm at like 1% or 100% of the way there. And I hope I'm like at 60%, but my deepest fear, I'm at like 2% at best. And everything I've gone through, it's like, holy shit, I got 98% more to go. And I think that it's probably a lot closer to 2% than it is 100%. It's a journey. What I've come to peace with is it is a journey, because every time I'll like clear something really heavy and then feel this incredible sense of peace. And I was like tracking my days in a row of total peace and joy. And I stopped tracking it. But my point was, it's like, oh, I figured it out. Oh, I'm good now. Yep. Everything's going to be great. And then wham, you get the next one. So it's like, it's just constant growth. And I think that's what it's all about, man, is to just keep growing. Because, look back 2-3 years ago, I could have just rode that thing out where I was and died with a pretty good life. But that's not my nature. My soul wants to grow. My soul wants to be free. My soul wants to be fully realized. And I decided I'm just going to let that happen. And there's nothing easy about it, but I'm having a blast with it.
When I, as an observer to your life and now learning about your journey, I know that going to Boulder with 2 of your buddies has been part of your journey. I am specifically interested in that because in the Front Row Dads community, we have small groups that we call bands. And I was mentioning that my band is 3 guys who I've been meeting with for 4 years now, every month for 2 hours. And talk to me a little bit about the benefit of that recurring adventure or experience or whatever you would call that. And what role did that play in the development of you and ultimately the 7 awarenesses, the 10 disciplines? What role did those 2 guys and that experience play in this?
Yeah, huge. I mean, it was huge. And there were certainly many other things, but that is a big one, because for over 20 years now, every year we've done that. And what we do is we go for 3.5 days. And these 2 guys are lifers. We know everything about each other. And so it gives us an opportunity, as we're kind of transitioning in, we share everything about our lives. We build kind of a little bit of a topics list, and those topics run for the next 3.5 days, other than bringing in some sort of a healer for a day. And so we'll work with someone, we'll fly somebody in, or it's typically in Boulder. There are so many resources in Boulder. You'll never run out of them, but it's just someone where we decide where we are in our life and what we're looking for. And again, like I said, I always shed another layer in Boulder. And whether that's through ahas I have with the conversations with them, or through this person that we brought in to work with us. And it's not like it's always this like crazy woo-woo shit or person, or we're not bringing in a shaman every time. Sometimes it's just a life coach who's just really freaking good and just hits you right in the soul. So it's always different, but it's just always somebody to take us a little bit deeper, get us a little closer to our soul, shed a layer. So we're just that much closer. So it's been very key and instrumental, along with certainly other things.
When you say shedding, every year I shed something. I had two visions pop into my mind. One is my grandmother, who lived to be 101, and we said goodbye to her a couple of years ago. She would say she spent the first half of her life acquiring things and the second half of her life figuring out how to give them away. And I thought about how that's definitely for me. I've been trying to acquire a lot of tools for the first 47 years of my life. And just now I'm starting to realize that a lot of what I want to do is let go of things. And not that I won't be continuing to collect tools or resources or stories or people in my life that align, but, and then the second vision was that of like a statue coming to life. It's what you chip away and what you remove, and that visual that's been used by many people many times. But I love the peeling concept,
Yes.
right? And the shedding concept. Because sometimes I go into an experience now or a learning, or even in my marriage or with my children, it's not what else can I do? It's what can I not do?
Mm-hmm.
And you talk about space, and that's actually been the thing that made the biggest difference in my business, is not more action, it's actually space. And that I had to recognize that stillness was a move.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, that's how I relate to what you're talking about. Let's talk about, if we can, I want to ask you to choose where we go next, because I wonder if one of these pieces lays the foundation for the other. We talk about the 7 awarenesses, or we talk about the 10 disciplines. Which should be discussed first?
Well, I certainly 10 disciplines first, because it absolutely is in a very specific order. So absolutely 10 disciplines, because that's the foundation that creates the space and the opening.
Then let's get into that. I've heard you do this before, so I'm going to ask you to do it again, is give us the 5-minute, give you a little breathing room here. Run us through the 10 disciplines, because I think that just by their titles, and I'm looking at them now as well, but talk to us about the 30-second on each of these disciplines to give us a zoom out, if you will, that 10,000-foot view.
You bet. And then the way I do it after I share it, if there's 1 or 2, your audience better than I do, that you want to drill down on deeper, let it fly. But
Cool.
Here's the high level overview. Okay. And these are 10 disciplines that I've lived by in my life for at least 20 years. But here they go. And so number 1 is 10-year thinking, which is just simply shifting your thinking to 10-year timeframes, not the now, today, this week, this month, this quarter kind of thinking that most driven entrepreneurs, they think that way. And as soon as you make that shift, time slows down. You literally, a peace comes over you. You make better decisions and you get there faster. Number 2 is take time off. You've got to recharge your batteries. Again, the driven visionary entrepreneur, they go. They don't know how to take time off. They don't understand the power. I have taken the month of August off every year for the last 25 years. I built EOS Worldwide, a pretty impressive organization, taking the month of August off every year since the day I started that business. And so you've got to recharge. And if you just understand stopping, putting on the brakes, recharging your batteries, you are literally twice as productive. And so once you understand that, it's a no-brainer to take time off. Number 3 is know thyself. And so I always lovingly like to say, the whole idea here is to know thyself, but the truth, it's about being yourself. But you can't be yourself until you know thyself. And this is that point we make about shedding all the layers and truly figuring out who you are, what your soul is, what your soul wants. And I like to say, let your freak flag fly. That's my wish for everyone out there, is just to let your freak flag fly. Number 4 is be still. And so obviously this is the one where we need to stop. You mentioned stillness. This is meditation, prayer, journaling, contemplation, whatever it is for you. For me, it's meditation, 30 minutes a day, but it's stopping, being still, resting inside of yourself and just letting the dust settle, if you will. It's literally stopping and letting your soul catch up. Number 5 is knowing your 100%. And so this is your work time. This is your work container. And my urging to everyone is to decide the number of weeks you're going to work every year and how many hours a week. I work 40 weeks a year, 55 hours a week. That's my magic formula, my secret sauce. And everyone has one. It's to figure out what is your 100% so you can protect that, delegate all else. And then to your point about chiseling, just keep dialing in, maximizing everything going on in the 100%. That's 100% within your craft, the value you bring to the world. This is where you make money. This is where you serve, and just maximizing that and cutting out everything else. Next is to say no often. And so this, once the first 5 disciplines are clear, it becomes so abundantly clear as to what you need to start saying no to in your life. So when you know what it looks like in 10 years and 20 years and 30 years, and you're taking time off and you know yourself and you're being still and you know you're 100%, what to say no to is likened to somebody telling you to eat a worm. You're going to say no unless you're on fear factor. Number 7 is don't do $25 an hour work. And so at the level your audience is at, assuming you're making at least 100 grand, I'm sure you've got people making $1 million, $10 million a year. Don't ever do $25 an hour work. It's simple math. We're managing energy with each one of these. So just first of all, to stop doing that, your energy is going to multiply, but you should not be doing that. And so any $25 an hour work, you need to be delegating to free yourself up. Again, also to maximize what you're doing inside of that 100%. Number 8 is to prepare every night. Simply put, before your head hits the pillow, you should chronologically lay out tomorrow. So when you wake up in the morning, you hit the ground running. But more importantly, you sleep better. You will wake up to solutions of things you're going to be working on the next day. In other words, your energy goes through the roof and you restore better. Number 9 is to put everything in one place. So as hard-charging, driven, visionary entrepreneurs, throughout the day, there's like 20 things that come at us, or we suggest. So in other words, we make promises to people. We have ideas. People are asking us for things. And by the end of the day, you rarely write it down, or you're putting it in 7 different places. It's all a big mess. You're letting people down. Your energy's scattered. And so putting everything in one place is you deciding the one place you're going to put all of those things. For me, it's a legal pad. I literally have a legal pad with me every working hour, driving in the car, whatever it is. Anytime something comes up, it goes there. At the end of the day, I then decompress it all, move it where it needs to go, compartmentalize it all. And I never let anyone down. I honor all of my commitments. And again, my brain is now clear, because you can't hold all of those thoughts in your head. Managing energy. And number 10, be humble. As important as the rest, I suggest a humble life is much better than an arrogant life. And so I describe it as a spectrum. We are all somewhere on a spectrum of being humble and being arrogant. And so what I urge you to do is consider where you are. And one of the exercises is to just ask the 5 closest people in your life that will be honest with you. Draw, put a little dash mark on where I am, and you'll get a real honest opinion of where you are. And truth be told, if you're a humble person, you're going to attract humble people. If you're an arrogant person, you're going to attract arrogant people. And so what do you want to surround yourself with? And I have found that surrounding yourself with a bunch of humble people, the journey's a hell of a lot better than a whole bunch of arrogant people. And so there's the 10 disciplines for managing and maximizing your energy.
We say in Front Row Dads that we're men with wisdom who are wise enough to know there's more to learn. And that the 2 qualities that I appreciate in any person that I'm trying to surround myself with is confidence and humility. Like, I love when somebody can make a decision. I love when somebody knows their shit, but I also love when somebody is willing to course correct, and then to recognize that their belief yesterday might not be true today. And so that's a tough balance, though. How do you be absolutely certain, know who you are, and know that you may be different today than you were yesterday? There may be that's hard.
It is a battle. And what makes it even more challenging is the more successful you become and the more people that start coming to you. I mean, it is so easy for your ego to run away with that. And so I always jokingly say, whenever I'm starting to get a little carried away, I go read my 1-star reviews on Amazon. That brings me right back to the ground.
Yes.
So it is a constant battle. And so it's just an awareness thing. Appreciation and gratitude is really helpful, because it's really hard to appreciate and be grateful. And so if you practice gratitude often, it's really hard to be arrogant and grateful, so that kind of helps bring you back. So humility, remembering you're human, remembering your mistakes, so these kind of things help me keep my feet on the ground. And then, with 2 great kids, my kids are 27 and 30 now, but, we have a very open and honest relationship. And so they keep me humble because, they'll be honest with me. I have a wife who's great at keeping me humble because she's so incredibly humble. So the support system also helps keep you on the ground. They'll keep me in check if my feet ever start coming off the ground.
That's cool. Which of these 10 do you think comes easiest to you? You just gravitate towards naturally? Was it easiest to develop? And which one do you feel maybe requires more attention to stay in sync with?
And you're asking that of me personally?
Yes.
Not like a collective roll everybody into one answer. What comes easiest to me? Hold on, let me just take a look here.
Just trying to ask you questions that other people don't ask you very often.
Yeah, no, I honestly have never been asked that. And so good job on that. Just bear with me. Give me 15 seconds max. I think there's a few I would choose from, but I think take time off is what jumps out at me. And I want to say that because that's probably the most controversial, because I would suggest 85% of your audience struggles with taking time off. I've got no problem with it. Going back to when I was in my teen years, from 15 to 18 in high school, working in a party shop, I would save up enough money to take every summer off because I just wanted to party all summer long. When my daughter was born at 23 years old, I took the whole month of August off for that. That's when I started this August sabbatical discipline. I'm able to turn it off on the weekends. And I don't know what it is, but I'm able to stop because it feels so good to rest and rejuvenate and regroup. And then I just come back in so clear and creative and hit the ground running. So I would suggest that that's probably the easiest. And then what was the second one? The second question?
Which one do you struggle maybe to stay on track with? Like if there was one that you're like, that one gets me every time.
Yeah, I love it. So that would be, oh man, I'm pretty good at all these, but again, I'm at 25.
I figured you made the list. You're probably pretty good at all of them.
20 years and I'm pretty good. I would say that, I would say be humble. And what the point I'm making is, I hope for myself that I can be considered a humble person. And I get that compliment often, but, I did the exercise where you ask the people closest to you. And on the spectrum, if we look at the spectrum from 0 to 100%, and the 0 side is the arrogant side, and the 100% is the humble side, the feedback I got is that I'm at about the 65% mark, which kind of bummed me out because I thought I was a little more humble than that. But it was a great insight. Thank God I'm not on the other half of it, but I'm not as far into the humble half that I want to be. So it is a constant battle because, I'm not kidding you. I get 5 accolades a day. I get 5 requests for things a day. People want my attention. It's your ego can really get carried away. And so I'm just constantly just taking it with a grain of salt, grounding myself. And so that I would say probably is the one I struggle with the most. I feel like I do a damn good job with it, but it is always a work in progress.
The one, thanks for your honesty with that, by the way. And I'm grateful that you took a moment and paused to really consider the real answer.
Yeah.
Well, the one I want to talk about, and I want to leave a little bit of time too for the 7 awarenesses, at least to just give us, a path to that of what that means and where we could potentially go connect more. But the one that I want to ask you about, if we drill into one here, is about saying no. And I would love to hear more about how you learned to do that, how you do that specifically. And what I mean, and not to over qualify the question, is literally like language that you use for yourself or your team on how you decline invites. Because to me, this is the one, if somebody's a connector, a relationship person, they seize opportunities, man, saying no can be, in my mind, the most difficult one on this page.
Yeah. So, and when I was wrestling with which one to pick, from the one that's easiest for me, one of them is saying no. So for me, I'm an anomaly because I get giddy saying no to people. I mean, and it's like, it's become an art for me because I love my build up to the no. And so that's the words that I'm going to give you that you're asking for, which I think you'll like and will be helpful. But here's the thing. And as I mentioned, that when the first 5 disciplines are in place, saying no is so easy and obvious and apparent. And so again, for me, I clearly know what my life looks like in 10 and 20 years. In other words, I know that I want to be, a great father, a great husband, a great friend, a great businessman. So I know that, and I know I take time off so I'm recharging my batteries, and I will not sacrifice that time off. And so if somebody's going to ask me to do something during my time off, that's like a no-brainer. And I know myself so well that I'm not going to say yes to something that's not in alignment with who I am. And I be still every day, 30 minutes of meditation. And so my central nervous system is calm, and I know my 100%. So I know my work container, and I only have this much. And if I said yes to every work request, it would take 1,000%, like literally 10 times more than what I have if I said yes to every request. So so it's easy to say no, knowing that's all I have to work with. And so with that, when I know I need to say no, for me, it's always saying no, explaining why it's a no. And sometimes it's as simple as, just so you know, I get that request like 100 times a year. And so it's nothing personal. So congratulations, you're number 100. But I have to say no to that, because if I said yes to everyone, I wouldn't be married. I wouldn't, so I make the point that says, listen, if I say yes to this thing, it's going to destroy my life because I only have so much capacity. But then what I do, and it's probably the most important thing, is I offer another option. So for instance, somebody wants me to come and speak, and the answer is no. Well, I can't for these reasons. But here's 3 great speakers that I think will be perfect for you. So whatever it is, I'm always offering another option for them. And people hang up hearing me say no from a phone call or a conversation happy. It's the craziest thing. And so that's how I do that. And that's how that works for me. But if you've never read Essentialism, the audience out there, great book, which will help you build a muscle of saying no, because there's so much gold in there. But one piece of gold is he tells the story about how we human beings, the mere thought of telling somebody no gives us literally physical anxiety. And so, but you have a choice. You either feel that physical anxiety for like 30 seconds and say no, or you say yes, and then you regret it for days, weeks, months, and sometimes years. It's a no-brainer, man. So anyway, it's like a piece of cake for me. I freaking love it. I get giddy. I'm okay saying no, and I don't feel the least bit guilty.
What just hit me is I've said yes to people recently where my answer was, I'm a yes to you. Like I'm talking to a person who asked me for something, and I go, so somebody recently said, do you want to get in on this thing I'm doing? It would be this investment. I took a look at the deal or whatever. And I then replied back to that person. I looked at the deal. It looks great, but I'm really a yes to you. And so for that reason, I'm in. And I said that very clearly. I know what I'm doing. I know I'm a yes to this person. Then I realized, Gino, that the reason saying no is hard for me is because I then feel like I'm saying no to the person. So I'm not a no to the deal. I'm a no to you is what it feels like to me, which is why I think I struggle with that. Like I'm rejecting a person, and then I'm probably projecting my own childhood trauma and the thing that drove me to build Front Row Foundation, Front Row Global, Front Row Dads, the fear of, right? Like of being rejected by my children, not having a relationship. There's actually part of the reason I have so many friends, I think, is because I fear being rejected by people, and that plays a role where I will serve and connect and give and love and all that. But a lot of that's rooted in the fear of like not having relationships or not having a tribe.
Yeah. And again, that's one of mine, is about the judgment piece. And so my worry is their reaction or their judgment of me or how they're going to feel. And so one of the things I realize is literally every decision I made in my life up until about a year ago, I would factor in everyone's reaction. I mean, how messed up is that? I'm like literally thinking about everyone's reaction to this thing that I'm about to do. I mean, that is messed up stuff right there. That is not freedom. So the one thing I would suggest to you on what you're saying, my style is when I'm feeling something like that, I just tell the person, I say, listen, no to the deal, but here's how I'm feeling inside right now. Because right now I'm feeling guilty as shit because I feel like you feel like I'm saying no to you. And I just want to say that out loud. So I just say it, you know what I mean? Like whenever I'm feeling some form of shitty, nervous, scared, afraid, whatever it is, like I'm about to do a talk and I'm feeling nervous, I just say it. I just tell them and it like literally goes away. So it's when you shed light on something, it tends to dissipate. So that would be my advice to that situation. Other than that, my advice would be stop doing that.
I want to throw this in there too, that one of the reasons that we may be uncomfortable saying no may tie to our childhood trauma too, right? That actually, because I remember I was sitting at the dinner table in my home recently with a friend, and she said that there are 5 childhood wounds, and here they are: abandonment, rejection, humiliation, betrayal, or injustice. So you likely, as a child, have one of these that's more part of your development than the other: abandonment, rejection, humiliation, betrayal, or injustice.
Man, I need to get those 5 from you. So if you wouldn't mind, I don't know if there's somebody on your team that could send that to me, but I would love that. And here's what I would say to that. Like, let's make it really real and I don't know, maybe a little inappropriate, but just think about this, so either think of a man with mommy issues or a woman with daddy issues. Okay. And now play this out in their life 30 years later. And the woman with daddy issues is with a man and something comes up. I mean, all of a sudden that's the default. They don't want to disappoint that person. And so they're doing shit that is not best for them because of those. And the same thing with the man. This man is with a woman 30 years later, and every decision is being made from that wound that's doing damage to them. So you're spot on. So yeah, I think goes back to that. And that's
if you haven't dealt with your childhood trauma, your relationship will force you to do so.
Yes, you got
Tatiana's is abandonment and mine's rejection. That's where we are.
I would really appreciate getting those 5. That's really insightful and helpful.
Let's talk about not the smoothest of transitions here, but usually I'm a little more slick with transitions. The 7 awarenesses to free your soul.
Yeah.
So 10 bonus points to you, Gino, if you find out how to connect those 2 things we were just talking about.
Absolutely. That's a piece of cake. That's the easiest thing I've had to do all day. So here's how it works. Okay. So the 10 disciplines, we've just covered them. That's the foundation. There's a free ebook we offer. It's a 30-page ebook on the website. You already said it, the10disciplines.com. Download it, read it, master them. We offer group coaching around it. Whatever it takes to get these embedded in your life, you just simply implement them in their life, and that creates a foundation and a platform, certainly to manage and maximize your energy, but more importantly, to create an opening and space for you to do the inner work. And that's what takes us right to where you're going. 7 awarenesses to free your soul, because it's all then about the inner work. And these 7 awarenesses are the inner work. And so what I can do is the same little, I'll do a 5-minute riff on this one, and then you tell me which one jumps out for your audience to drill down on. But for us, it's all about freeing souls. And so our mission is to free 1 million souls. And that's what we're all about. And so here's how to free your soul, at least by our humble opinion. And so again, 5-minute riff. The first awareness is called I am driven. And the way I teach this is I urge the person to write it down. And so hopefully your audience is doing that. And so number 1, write I am driven. And it's just an awareness that says I am driven DNA. I'm one of the 10% of the planet that has this blessing and a curse. I'm blessed with superhuman stamina and strength and creativity and the ability to produce, but I do a whole lot of damage to myself and others as a result of it. Just be aware of that. Very powerful book, Driven by Dr. Doug Brackman. It's a masterpiece on helping you understand that. Number 2 awareness is I am pure energy. The day you realize scientifically, religiously, spiritually, I don't care what you call this stuff. Once you realize you are a ball of energy, that's all we all are. We're pure energy. And some of us burn very bright, and some of us don't burn very bright. When you don't burn very bright and you vibrate at a low level, you have blocked energy. There's stuff blocking your energy, which then takes us to awareness number 3, which is I can remove blocked energy. To be aware that you can remove blocked energy when the block comes up, and you learn how to sit and process it with it. That thing that happened at 7. Again, I'm not a mental health expert, but I've seen some amazing things happen when you will really just let it come up and sit with it, and you start to feel emotions and process emotions and understand emotions and stop running from them. Because what you've done since 7 is every time that tingle comes up and the pain starts to brew, your ego pushes it down as hard as it can. And so it's buried in there. And so you can remove blocked energy. And as that blocked energy, those are the layers I'm talking about. And when you remove it, oh, there's this incredible joy, this incredible peace that lasts for a little while. And then the next one comes up, and then the next one, and the next one, and the next one. And then you start to get really good. Once you're all caught up and you got rid of all the old shit, when the new stuff comes up, you'll literally process it in 90 seconds. It's scientific that a typical emotion lasts no more than 90 seconds if you'll process it. Awareness number 4 is I have a soul in here. So as you start to shed layers, remove blocks, the awareness is that there's a soul in there. There's a soul in your body and it wants to come out. And so the idea is you're aware, you'll start to see your soul, you'll feel your soul is going to start talking to you. It's just an awareness, it's in there, which then leads us to number 5. And that is all of my decisions are made out of love or fear. Every single decision we make as beings is out of love or fear. A love-based decision is from your soul. A fear-based decision is from your ego. And all of a sudden with awareness, you start to realize, ooh, that was an ego decision. Ooh, that was a soul decision. Ooh, that was a fear-based decision. Ooh, that was a soul-based decision. And then with that, that leads us to number 6, which is I am aware. So the awareness is I am aware. I am present. I am conscious, which just means you're aware. What are you aware of? What I just shared. You're aware that you're driven. You're aware that you're pure energy. You're aware that you can remove blocks. You're aware that you have a soul in there. And you're aware that every decision is made from love or fear. And then that takes us to number 7, my favorite one. And that is that it is possible. Number 7, it is possible to be driven and have peace. My greatest fear is that when I opened this Pandora's box, Celestine Prophecies 25 years ago, holy cow, we're pure energy. We have a soul, freaky stuff. And I started to do this work and I shed a layer. I'm like, whoa, man, if I fully get there, am I going to be zapped of all of my drive and just want to live in a hut for the rest of my life? It petrified my ego at that thought. And again, the learning is, oh my God, we become 10 times more productive. But the awareness is that it is possible to be driven and have peace. And my mission is to help we've driven visionary entrepreneurs be incredibly productive, bring our craft to the world, serve the world, incredible value, build like we build like never before, matched with being incredibly peaceful, operating from love, letting go, having presence, going from your intuition, being in the flow. And when those two things are in action, that's pure and true balance. And we call that float. And what we want for you is maximize your freedom, your creativity, and the impact on the world. And you will make a bigger impact on the world with these 7 awarenesses in place. I hope I did that in 5 minutes. I think
you did great. My follow-up here is about the impact that this has had on your family. And I want to tie this back to marriage, to your kid, your relationship with your children. How has this impacted you as a father, as a family man?
Yeah, so I would say a couple of things, because, you know, the one, and this may be my ego, and this may be a fear-based decision, but for some reason, whenever a marital question comes up, my mind goes to the last 30 years of watching celebrities brag about how great their marriage is and then end up divorced within 2 years. And Tom Cruise jumping up and down on a couch saying, with Oprah saying, I'm in love. And so I always get very skittish about saying, you know, my marriage is perfect. I'm a great father, in terms of giving that kind of advice. And maybe it's just me being superstitious and I'm afraid I'm going to jinx myself. So here's the best answer I can give from an everyday driven visionary entrepreneur who's just as screwed up as everybody, who's always just trying to make, you know, a 31-year marriage and a 37-year relationship work. And I always jokingly like to say, you know, we've survived every decade. So how it shows up, we'll start with my kids and just what they tell me now. And what they tell me now, and we just had this conversation within the last month, they described it as I'm more emotional. So I can only assume it's a good thing, because, you know, in a recent meditation, like this one stung, but I realized how not present I was. I was a pretty good dad. I was a pretty good husband. I was there, I think, more than most driven visionary entrepreneurs, But man, I realized how unpresent I was. So when they say that to me, you're more emotional, I think that they're just maybe feeling my engagement more, my presence more, every text has a heart in it now, that probably freaked them out. That started about 6 to 12 months ago. So I think, so that's that best I can give you there. And with my wife's relationship, all I can say is, it does keep getting better. This awareness, it keeps getting better. What I'm finding is I am more peaceful during a disagreement, where my central nervous system would be like redlined, and I'd be fighting for my life. That doesn't happen almost anymore. And now it's just like an adult, mature conversation. And so that's the best I can give you. And I am not perfect and always a work in progress.
Do you think that, well, let me ask this a different way. And thank you. Let me actually back up for a second. I really appreciate that perspective, because I think what you said about being more emotional and being more present, and this idea of like looking back and saying, I could have been more present, or not that you said that, I'm putting those words in your mouth, but that you weren't as present, and maybe that was a little painful.
Brutal.
I think that's every family's desire. Every kid, every wife is for somebody to be fully present. When I think about people that I love connecting with, it feels like they're totally present with me. Like, I think the greatest compliment I've ever received is when somebody says like, God, when you talk to me, Jon, it's like I'm the only person in the room. Like, that's one of the greatest compliments, because a fear of mine is being distracted. When you talk and when you survey our community, you realize that a lot of the guys are like, how do I get with my kids and like really be with my kids and not solving problems at work? Even if I'm playing a board game, like my brain is somewhere else doing something else. And I have a lot of compassion for that, because it is tough if you're working and you're driven and you're doing all these things, and then you have to switch gears. Switching gears can be very difficult. And we talk about in Front Row Dads having range, having agility, so that you can move from that driven, I'm achieving, I'm in the system, to now I'm perhaps maybe like I'm in flow. And that we keep calling that the dance. Like, we're always doing this dance in our life. And I used to look at it like it was a game more. And now I look at it like it's a dance of energy and this polarity and this movement between us and what is around us and the energies that are within us and around us.
So good.
My question is, here's what I wanted to ask that I was stumbling on earlier. You're great at systems. You clearly can break something down into different parts and articulate it. And now you're doing that with a whole different journey on the internal world. If you had to think about what the principles are for success at home, I don't think I prepped you for this one. So shooting from the hip.
Yeah.
If there were, and I know you were on Lewis's podcast, he does the three truths, right? Thinking about like principles for success at home with your family. Have you ever thought about what they might be? Like the principles that work at home?
Yeah, no, and I love off the cuff questions. So, but I also can't promise you that I'll have a great answer. And so I think for this one, you decide how much time we have left on the podcast, but I want to think out loud with you and go back and forth, and then you call the clock and we'll just kind of eke out whatever comes out of me. Because if there's anything coming up for me, and everything that you've said for the last 3 minutes after what I said, and what I would add to what I said is probably my biggest aha recently is I just have to keep working on me. In other words, it like used to always be focused on them in two ways, and maybe how they could be better or how I could be better for them. But that's that whole thing where like every one of my decisions is factoring that in. And I don't think that's entirely healthy. But if I just work on me and I just keep becoming the best version of me, it seems like it keeps getting better. but then here's my superstitious, freaky, something bad's going to happen. And my wife's probably going to serve me papers tomorrow morning. So, and my kids are never going to talk to me. I don't know, but I'm showing you that, the ego is still working. It's still there working. So, but that's what I have found is I just got to keep working on me. I got to do the work on me. And everything just seems to get better. That's the thing that's coming through the most as a one big answer to all of it. And I can't come up with 3, but if again we went 5 more minutes, I could probably muster up 2 or 3, but I'd really be scraping the bottom of the barrel to give you something.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that. I mean, it doesn't have to be 3 either. I think a singular principle is important. This idea of working on yourself. It seems like the thing I've heard all my life, and it intellectually makes sense. And it's the thing that also, from an emotional standpoint, keeps surprising me the most. Because right when I learn something, I remember many times in my marriage, I would think, I read the book on marriage. I went to the counselor said, do this, talk this way. Yeah. And then I would come home and I would get into an argument and it wouldn't work. And I'm like, look, it's definitely not me at this point. It's definitely her. Because I read the book. I went to the counselor. I executed the plan. It's not me, it's her.
Yeah.
Now, let me check in. Is my ego, I'm growing, I'm learning, it's definitely her. Right? And then something will happen where I'll grow 2 years later and look back on that version of myself and be like, I was not enlightened. It was clearly me. I couldn't see it.
Yes.
And so blind spots became the most fascinating thing to me. And almost if I have faith in anything, Gino, it's that I have blind spots. Like if there's just faith, it's like, look, I'm going to go into this thing saying, I'm probably going to get the thing I wasn't even expecting.
Yeah.
I'll probably learn something. The biggest lesson will be out of left field. It won't be the thing I went in for, because that's what I do know. If I'm going in going, I know this and I'm looking for this, that's what I know.
Yeah.
But the biggest lessons are what I don't know.
Yeah. And you're prompting 2 things. I'll try and say them really fast. And I don't think that this is like a second and a third, but for what this is worth, I think it's all in this thing we're talking about. And so now I'm reminded of this conversation 2.5 years ago, talking to this guy. And we're talking about, he's sharing his story, and I've done this a million times, but he's talking about his story about his wife, having a problem with how hard he works. And he shared something that I have said to my wife and my family 1,000 times, which is, I'm doing this for us. I'm doing this for us. I'm doing this for us. And his point was, we say and we tell them we're doing this for us, but we ain't doing it. We're doing it for ourselves. But the freedom in that, to know that if that's who you are and you're a worker and you want to work that hard, just be honest, and that you're doing it for you. You're not working this hard for them. They'd probably prefer more of you. So that for what that is worth, that was like a light bulb moment. And then the second thing is, very recently, 6 months, maybe a little bit more, I'm talking to this guy who went through some marital problems with his wife. They separated, they got back together. They may even gotten divorced. And this guy then spent a lot of time counseling couples, doing a ton of research. I mean, a crazy amount of hours of research. And his conclusion that he came back to in all of the marriages that survived counseling was in the situations where each party took total responsibility to work on themselves and literally stopped trying to fix the other one. And so that was another light bulb moment. And that's kind of what I'm talking about is, I'm just going to keep working on me and being me, certainly, and letting go and surrendering and letting my soul come to the surface. And man, I hope my wife loves and wants that, and my friends want that, and my kids want that, and everybody else in my life wants that. And it feels like that's the right formula at this moment as a 55-year-old guy sitting here today, so that's the current thought, at least.
People often ask, will I do couples events, and will I do kids events and family events? And I think what they're asking is, hey, would you create the systems and the tools that bring my family closer together? Would you get my wife and I closer together? And the thing that I'm just set on right now is I want to hold a space for men to do the work on themselves to bring back a better version of themselves to their family. That's my greatest gift to the men.
Here.
You do the work on you, and then you bring a better version back. Gino, gosh, this has been really fun, really enjoyable. I'm so glad that I have had this opportunity to take a deeper dive into your life prior to the conversation today, and then to talk about these things that I've been witnessing and learning about as it relates to your decades-long run now, and how you've played in the game, and how you've been in flow, and how you've been growing. I think that the lesson I want to take away more than anything is, as someone as successful as you on paper, right, can still be growing so much and evolving so much and have so much joy in these new endeavors and principles and experiences of your life, that to me gives me a little bit of a roadmap, because you're a couple years down the road from me. And I'm like, oh, my greatest hope is that I'll still be evolving, like you are. And so thank you for being a model for that, for all of us. Because if you just would have sold the business and then went and sat on a beach and got yourself drunk all day, that would not be nearly as inspiring as what you're currently attempting to do, and doing deep work on yourself for you, for the world. So thank you.
Thank you for that. You and I had that conversation, our first conversation a month or two ago. Here we are today. I believe this is no coincidence that we are together having this conversation right now. And it's just amazing how we flow and are in sync. And so who knows where this journey takes us, but it is just a joy talking with you.
Yeah. Thanks, Gino. I called our mutual friend Hal afterwards, and I was like, dude, I love this guy. It was easy. It was perfect. It was great. And thank you, brother. I appreciate it. Let's leave the men who are listening, and the women who may be listening in as well, with a few action steps. So to put a bow on this, where do they go? What do they do? What's their next step?
You bet. Well, I'll suggest 2 websites. So first, what we've been talking about, 10 disciplines. So the10disciplines.com. You can spell 10 or write 10. And what you'll find there is a free ebook, 30 pages, quick read, but it will teach you the 10 disciplines. What you'll also get if you give us your email is a weekly article that we write, and it's just discoveries for the driven. It's all about helping you do the inner work. And then we do offer group coaching if you really want to master this stuff and you want our help taking you through it. We take groups of 15 through this. That's all things 10 disciplines. And then all things, the 5 pieces of content I've created in the world for entrepreneurs is ginowickman.com. If you go there, you'll see all 5 pieces of content, but those would be the 2 places I direct them. And just wherever you are, there's something for you on your entrepreneurial path.
Well, to everybody out there listening, thanks for your time and attention today. Gino, thank you, my friend. I appreciate you. I really do believe in my heart this is not our last conversation. I know there's a lot of learning I can do from and with you. And thank you again for being present with us today and sharing a little bit of your life, a little bit of your time, and your being so open about your experiences. So until next time, my friend, thank you.
It was a blast. Right back at you.